that was called on Asia Wilson.
Yeah, you can see Kelsey Mitchell right there get Wilson in the face.
All right, buckle up, because the WNBA just dropped a masterclass in absolute chaos. New footage and reactions are blowing up, showing Kelsey Mitchell straight up calling out Asia Wilson and the refs after one of the dirtiest, most rigged-looking games you will ever see. From cheap fouls to wild technicals, Indiana wasn't just supposed to lose, they weren't supposed to survive, but what happened instead? They flipped the script completely. So the real question is, do you think Vegas is finally panicking now? The Las Vegas Aces walked into their home arena expecting a coronation, right? They had the MVP trophy polished. The media was lined up ready to celebrate, and the entire script was already written. Asia Wilson was supposed to dominate. Becky Hammond was supposed to outsmart Indiana, and yeah, the refs were supposed to manage things squarely in Vegas's favor. But instead, the night turned into a full-blown disaster. A total collapse fueled by pure arrogance, sloppy play, and honestly, some of the worst officiating you'll ever witness in a playoff game.
To talk about this really quick, one of the moments in the game that showed blatant inconsistency, right? And just showed, hey, y'all be paying attention to what y'all want to pay attention to, all right, in the WNBA.
Let me tell you, at no level of basketball would anyone in their right mind call what happened to Kelsey Mitchell a technical foul. She takes heavy contact on a drive, absorbs a clear arm across her body, finishes the play with incredible focus, and then, instead of getting the free throw she earned, she gets punished. Why? Because the whistle only worked one way, didn't it? Because if Asia Wilson is on the floor, apparently, the rulebook just changes. That became the theme of the entire night. One set of standards for Indiana and a completely different one for Las Vegas. The Aces came out swinging with everything they had, everything except actual good basketball. We're talking elbows, forearms, blatant flops, you name it. They weren't trying to win cleanly, they were trying to bully. But here's the kicker. Indiana didn't even blink. They didn't let the whistles or those cheap shots rattle them for a second. Instead, they just tightened up their defense, ran their sets perfectly, and punished Vegas every single time they lost focus.
This is a part of what people are tired of, man. Tired of the inconsistencies and the favoritism that y'all show certain teams with certain jerseys on, man. It's crazy.
Right from the jump, you could just see it. The Fever weren't intimidated, not one bit. Kelsey Mitchell immediately started attacking the lane relentlessly, forcing the Aces to collapse and then punishing them hard when they sagged off. Odyssey Sims was an absolute bulldog on both ends of the court, never letting Chelsea Gray or Jackie Young get comfortable. And Aaliyah Boston and Brianna Turner, they rotated perfectly, cutting off any easy looks for Wilson in the post and forcing her into those tough fadeaways and heavily contested hooks. The Fever weren't just surviving out there, they were straight up dictating the pace of the entire game. Meanwhile, Vegas looked completely shook. The same team that was bragging about being the real Aces, just days before, suddenly looked totally lost. Every foul call they expected didn't come, every flop looked faker than the last, and instead of adjusting, they just melted down. Aja Wilson, who just hours earlier was handed her MVP trophy, responded by throwing elbows, barking at the refs, and forcing shots that just clanged off the rim. By the end of the night, she shot a brutal 6 for 22 MVP numbers, not even close.
How does the body feel at this time of the year, given all that you in particular have gone through and are always on the floor?
I'm a little sore, I'm not gonna lie. It's catching up to me, but we're gonna just keep getting warm, keep going out there, try to forget about the pain a little bit. But that's the part of the year. That's everyone. Everyone's playing with a little bit of bumps and bruises, and again, you just kind of forget about that in playoffs.
And let's talk about those fouls, particularly on Lexi Hall, who spent the entire night getting shoved, elbowed, and knocked to the floor. These screens weren't just illegal, they were WWE level moves, with players sticking out hips, leaning shoulders, and extending legs just to trip her. And yet, whistle after whistle stayed silent. The refs just let it happen. But here's the thing, instead of whining, Hall just tightened her defense, and every single possession she made Jackie Young's life absolutely miserable, forcing her to go east to west instead of north to south, and by the final buzzer, Hall's plus-minus was one of the best on the floor. Then came the moment that truly summed summed up the entire mess. Kelsey Mitchell drives to the rim, takes clear contact from Wilson, finishes the bucket, and suddenly the refs call a technical not on Wilson, not on the Aces, on Mitchell. At that point, it was beyond parody. Even Vegas fans couldn't believe it because that wasn't officiating. It was theater, a desperate attempt to tilt momentum back to the home team. But the ball doesn't lie. Vegas missed free throws, Indiana buried jumpers, and karma showed up faster than the officials could cover their tracks. Mitchell wasn't just scoring, she was making a statement. Every bucket silenced the Vegas crowd. Every three-pointer turned their arrogance into pure panic. And by the end of the night, she had 34 points and complete control of the game. No excuses, no bailout whistles, just cold-blooded shot making. Odyssey Sims matched that energy with veteran composure, slowing the game when needed, then speeding it up when Vegas was reeling. Natasha Howard fought like her career depended on it, cutting off second-chance points and bodying bigger players inside. And Brianna Turner, she made Wilson earn every single point the hard way. No easy catches, no free spins, just constant physical, disciplined defense. Indiana was supposed to fold, 6 players were missing. Caitlin Clark was out, Sophie Cunningham unavailable, Sydney Colson sidelined, and their bench thinner than ever. Analysts dismissed them before tip-off. Commentators called it a mismatch, and Becky Hammon herself declared that Indiana hadn't seen the real Aces. Translation: this was supposed to be an easy sweep, but instead of rolling over, the Fever rolled over Vegas. The Aces, meanwhile, revealed just how fragile they really are. When Wilson isn't bailing them out with 40-point nights, they simply don't know where to go. Chelsea Gray had flashes, Jackie Young hit a few shots, but none of it mattered because Indiana refused to break. Once Wilson hit the bench with foul trouble, Vegas collapsed. A 3-point game turned into a 14-point deficit within minutes. That's not championship basketball, that's dependency. And then there's Becky Hammon's post-game spin job. Asked about her team's struggles, she brushed it off as missed layups and missed chances. That wasn't just denial, it was insultingly lazy. The Fever outplayed her team in every phase. They defended harder, executed cleaner, and shot better. This wasn't bad luck, it was Indiana being flat out better. But Hammon couldn't admit it. She couldn't say her MVP got outplayed by Aaliyah Boston. She couldn't admit her veterans got clamped by Lexi Hall and Odyssey Sims, so instead she hid behind cliches. Meanwhile, in the Fever locker room, the energy was completely different. Kelsey Mitchell didn't mince words. She gave respect where it was due, acknowledging Vegas's talent, but she made it crystal clear Indiana came to compete and they weren't going anywhere. Her comments weren't angry rants, they were controlled, confident shots across the bow. She called out the nonsense without whining, pointing out exactly how her team fought through dirty play and bad officiating, and that's what made the night so poetic. Vegas had the hardware, the hype, and the headlines. Indiana had heart, toughness, and a refusal to bow. By the end of the game, the scoreboard told the story. Fever 89, Aces 73 on their home court. On MVP night, the supposed juggernaut was humbled by the 6th seed everyone dismissed. And here's the stat Vegas doesn't want to hear. In best-of-5 series, 72% of teams that win Game 1 advance. That means Indiana didn't just win, they shifted the odds of the entire series. They turned what was supposed to be a coronation into a crisis. The irony of this whole night is almost too much. Hours earlier, the cameras were focused on A'ja Wilson smiling with her MVP trophy. The league's golden child celebrated as untouchable, unstoppable, the face of women's basketball. And then within a few hours, she was missing layups, throwing elbows, and begging refs to bail her out against a Fever team missing half its roster. The so-called coronation turned into a humiliation because when you strip away the hype and the PR machine, what matters is what happens on the court. And on the court, the Fever were better, they were sharper, they were hungrier, and most importantly, they were fearless. Take Aaliyah Boston. She doesn't get the spotlight, Wilson does, but she put on a defensive masterclass. Wilson went 6 for 22 from the floor because Boston, Turner, and Howard never gave her an inch. Every post-up was contested, every spin was met with a wall, every fadeaway had a hand in her face. Wilson wasn't dominating, she was flailing, and the contrast couldn't be more clear. Boston carried herself with calm and discipline, while Wilson unraveled into flops and frustration. Then there's Lexi Hall. She might not have filled up the stat sheet, but she made Jackie Young miserable all night. Every cut was denied, every jumper was challenged, every drive was walled off. Her +24 plus-minus number said it all. Hall was the quiet assassin, doing the dirty work while Wilson and Vegas whined for whistles, and if you watched closely, you could see how much it rattled the ace. Vegas thought intimidation would work. They thought shoving, jawing, and flopping would throw Indiana off their rhythm. Instead, it backfired. The Fever fed off the disrespect. Every hard foul lit another spark. Every bogus whistle made them tighten up even more. By the end of the night, Indiana was smiling, while Vegas looked like the underdog begging for sympathy. And that's the bigger story here. Vegas has been crowned as the dynasty of the WNBA, multiple titles, star power, all the hype in the world. But dynasties don't melt down when one player has an off night. Dynasties adjust. Dynasties find other ways to win. What we saw wasn't a dynasty, it was a house of cards built on Wilson carrying them. Take her out of rhythm, and suddenly, they're exposed. Meanwhile, Indiana is showing what real team basketball looks like. Kelsey Mitchell wasn't just scoring, she was creating. She found Turner for easy buckets. She drew defenders and kicked to open shooters. She controlled tempo like a veteran who's been waiting her whole career for this stage. Sims added that steady hand, slowing things down when Vegas tried to bait Indiana into chaos. Howard fought like a warrior in the paint, and even the role players Shea Petty, Aerial Powers brought sparks at just the right moment. This is why nobody wants to play the Fever. They're not just hot, they're dangerous. Because they've got nothing to lose and everything to gain, they're playing with freedom while their opponents are playing with fear. And let's not gloss over the referees. This game was a disaster for officiating. Technical fouls handed out like candy, moving screens ignored, flops rewarded, blatant shoves called as nothing. It was as if the refs were working off two different manuals, one for Vegas, one for Indiana. But here's the kicker, even with all that nonsense, Indiana still won. That's how much better they were. They overcame not just the aces, but the stripes too. And that's what made Kelsey Mitchell's post-game words hit so hard. She didn't whine, she didn't cry. She acknowledged Vegas's talent, respected Wilson's resume, but made it clear that Indiana wasn't backing down. She called it like it was. Indiana played harder, wanted it more, and proved that they belonged. Those words carried weight because she had just dropped 34 on the so-called best defense in the league. Now the pressure shifts completely. Vegas, the defending champs, are staring at the possibility of going down 0-2 on their own floor. That's not pressure, that's panic. They've been exposed. Their one-dimensional reliance on Wilson is now obvious. Their defense isn't as sharp as advertised. Their composure isn't as steady as the media claimed. And if Indiana comes out in Game 2 with the same energy, this series might be over before it even gets back to Indianapolis. The funniest part, all the analysts who dismissed Indiana before the series are now scrambling to rewrite their takes. Before Game 1, the Fever weren't supposed to matter. After Game 1, suddenly everyone wants to talk about Indiana's grit and Mitchell's leadership. It's amazing how fast the narrative changes when reality smacks the so-called experts in the face. But true fans know the truth. The Fever have been building to this moment all year. They've been through injuries, disrespect, and constant questions about whether they even belong in the playoff. And now they're 2 wins away from the final. That's not just hype, and it's definitely not luck, that my friends is earned. Vegas, meanwhile, has to answer some seriously uncomfortable questions. Can they actually win if Wilson doesn't go absolutely nuclear? Can Becky Hammond finally make real adjustments instead of just making excuses? Can their so-called depth actually produce when it truly matters? Because right now, all we've seen is a team folding under pressure. Indiana, they don't have those problems. They know exactly who they are. They know Mitchell is the closer, Boston is the anchor, Sims is the steady hand, and those role players bring the spark every single time. They trust each other, they empower each other, and that's precisely why they're thriving when everyone else expected them to collapse. By the time this series is done, sure, the Aces might still claw their way back, but no matter what happens, Game 1 exposed the raw truth. Vegas isn't untouchable, Wilson isn't flawless, and the referees can't save them from everything. Indiana proved that heart, toughness, and composure can completely flip the entire script. So to the WNBA, to the fans, to the so-called experts, the message is loud and clear. The Fever are here, they're not scared, they are not folding, and if Vegas doesn't figure something out out fast. All that Dynasty talk is gonna sound real silly when the 6th seed is the one celebrating in the finals. The Aces thought this would be easy. Instead, Kelsey Mitchell and the Fever walked into their house, exposed the refs, embarrassed Aja Wilson, and flipped the series completely on its head. Indiana is now just 2 wins away from shocking the entire league. If you think Vegas is truly done, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your take below right now.